Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jamie. I'm a midwife with over a decade experience working with expecting families and attending births. Today we're going to discuss one of my favorite topics that comes up very often, and that is natural induction methods. Now, to be clear, these are non-medical methods. These are not going to the hospital for a induction with medication by a doctor or your provider. These are the things you've heard from your friends, your aunts, your grandma, whoever. Old wives' tales, sometimes effective, sometimes not. So this topic came up because recently I was reading ways that women used to historically try to induce labors, and something that came up surprisingly often was chickens. And I just really didn't see that coming, and in so many various forms. One was putting a chicken on a pregnant woman's belly to scratch the belly and encourage the baby to come out that way, which seemed horrendous, or putting the chicken on the woman's belly to encourage her to lay an egg, to encourage the mother to lay her own egg. I guess the human, like a chicken, lays an egg. It was weird. Also, raw eggs. Please do not be drinking raw eggs. The risk of salmonella is greater than whatever reason you are trying to get that baby out. There are a variety of reasons that people are considering naturally inducing, and the first one probably is obvious, and it is trying to avoid a medical induction. There are valid reasons for medical inductions, and we will go over that in a separate video, what those reasons are and what that looks like, but today we're just talking about natural remedies. Additional reasons people would consider doing a natural induction would be things like you're over being pregnant, you're uncomfortable, you're sick of it, you're impatient, you cannot wait to meet this baby. These are valid reasons, you know? You have been waiting 9 months for this moment, and it's likely you're uncomfortable and you just want to get it over with, right? Sometimes it has to do with family that's around and family that's coming in from out of town. Maybe it's the partner's work schedule and the amount of days they're allowed off and how that's being scheduled. Maybe it's even your own work schedule is really trying to nail down what days you're going to be in the office. All of these are valid reasons to be entertaining the idea of a natural induction. So the first one that comes up quite often is castor oil. Statistically, there are mixed reviews on that. Some say that it is more likely to encourage labor within 24 hours. Some say there's 50% chance success rate. There's no concrete evidence. If you are set on taking castor oil, there are some conversations that would be worth having with your provider about different ways to do it, what time of day, how effective it's going to be, other things that can be done in combination with it to make it more effective. Again, it's a conversation to have with your provider, but some of the things you want to take into consideration if you are considering castor oil is the adverse effects. So we're not going to downplay mentally how frustrating it is. Castor oil likely will cause some contractions, but they could go on and mimic labor contractions for hours, but not ultimately lead to labor. So that is frustrating. Maybe you're calling everybody, maybe you're getting everything situated, thinking you're about to walk out the door to the hospital, and it fizzles out. You're exhausting yourself for when you actually do go into labor. It's only gonna work if the body is ready or close to giving birth anyways. If you are just impatient and you're over it and it's 39 weeks, it's less likely to work. Nipple stimulation is another one that comes up often, and does it cause contractions? Yeah, usually it will. But are those contractions going to lead to labor? More often than not, again, you're just likely going to exhaust yourself. And for something that is not likely to lead to labor. So another less invasive form of inducing labor that may be kind of considered more medical is stripping membranes. So what this is your provider may offer at one of your prenatal visits to strip your membranes. Now what this is they would go in and during a cervical check, if your cervix is open, if your cervix is closed, they cannot do this because you have to enter the cervix. So it has to be at least 1 to 2 centimeters open. So they would go into the cervix and kind of what they would do is create space between the cervix and the baby's head. They would kind of break that seal, which releases hormones that encourage labor. It is less invasive, but it is an induction nonetheless, and it, again, similar to castor oil, can work if the body was already getting close to going into labor anyways. This isn't something that usually works right away. It's something that typically kicks labor in the next 24 to 48 hours. It can be effective, and statistics show that 75% of women will go into labor before 41 weeks if they don't get their cervix stripped, or their membrane stripped, and 91% will go into labor by 41 weeks if they have. So it can be effective, but similar to castor oil and nipple stimulation, there's a very real possibility that it will drum up some contractions that just then fizzle out. So that being said, a lot of things come up as natural induction methods that aren't necessarily induction methods, but things that women can do to prepare your body to give birth. So things such as drinking red raspberry tea, sitting on a birth ball, walking, eating dates. These things are not going to put you into labor, and sometimes I think they kind of get that reputation that they're going to just kick off labor, but what they're actually doing is preparing your body for labor. And they're not bad to do. Honestly, they are great ways to support your body and to know that you are doing everything in your power to help you have the most efficient labor. If you are considering natural inductions because you're hoping to avoid a medical induction, if there's not a medical reason for that induction, then that is worth a conversation with your provider of if that induction is really necessary. If you're feeling anxious enough about it, then you want to really reassess if that's even the right thing for you. A lot of times providers will encourage or offer inductions electively. So that's just your choice. Maybe, again, playing on the fact that you're over it, you're excited to meet the baby. You probably have a lot of friends and family who are also very excited to meet this baby. They use that angle to encourage moms to plan an induction. The most common reason to schedule a medical induction is providers will often act like a due date is an expiration date, and that is just not the case. A due date is an average that takes into account that some people give birth before their due date and some people give birth after their due date. It gives the impression that if your body has not given birth by your due date, that something is wrong with you and that you are expiring, right? Like you've missed your window. Clearly your body doesn't know what it's doing, when in fact that's not the case. 50% of people left alone will just give birth after their due date. So the things that I like to recommend and talk to people about is preparing yourself mentally, and this goes back to the beginning of pregnancy or early on in pregnancy. So if you're thinking about getting pregnant or early on, this part is for you. A lot of times we just see that date as an end, right? We put the due date on the calendar, we circle it, we tell every friend we can, we put it on Facebook, there's announcements about it. So as it gets closer to the due date, everyone is acting like that is the date that the baby will be there. And so you're feeling this external pressure, you're getting text messages, you're feeling obligated, like you're failing, like your body, something is wrong with your body, right? So first of all, take that pressure off by not telling people exactly when your due date is, giving them a range of dates or a season or a month. The baby is due mid-May. It's not going to go over well. I'm going to be honest. People get really hung up on that date. That is part of the reason why everybody thinks that induction is so normal, because society has just normalized inducing births. What I recommend is doing things to help feel comfortable and happy, and things that are going to release oxytocin. Oxytocin is a huge contributor in labor beginning, and cortisol, which is the stress hormone. If you're feeling stressed and anxious and frustrated that you're not in labor, that is the least likely recipe to go into labor naturally. Because if you're stressed out, your body is in fight or flight. It's not going to relax and be like, oh, it's safe to have a baby now. Here's some contractions, right? So we don't want cortisol towards the end of pregnancy. We want to do things that encourage oxytocin. So that is things that make you feel good, things that make you feel happy. The takeaway today, if you are looking into natural induction methods, really rethink why you are doing that in the first place and focus more on things that help you feel good. Don't stress about it, because your body knows what it's doing and it's not failing you. It's just you have to be patient and trust that it knows what it's doing. So to sum up today's episode, women have always been looking for ways to naturally encourage their baby to come out at the end of pregnancy. And there are valid reasons, whether medical or emotional reasons, to want to do that. My advice is to sit back, relax, kick your feet up, and trust the process. Follow along if you are interested in learning more.